So this is the third chapter. Nietzsche will play with talking about his own ideas and talking about what is the good idea and what is the bad idea, and he will play with the idea of showing other people thoughts and then complimenting on it or disapproving of it. Sometimes he will bring another person into the story, so like help him to tell the story. Like we saw in the last chapter, the last two chapters he did it all. He talked about his own ideas in the three metamorphoses. He talked about some other guy and then he'd give his ideas about it in the Chairs of Virtue. And here he talks about what is wrong and then he speaks about what is true in the chapter called After Worlds Man. Now, this chapter is actually very packed with different philosophies. It took me 3 pages to write for exactly what I'm thinking about it. We might put it in 2 chapters as it is a very, very long chapter. Let's see how it goes. Worst case, we'll just split it in 2. But let's begin. First quote I want to read from the book is, the creator wanted to look away from himself, so he created the world. It is an intoxicating joy for the sufferer to look away from his suffering and to forget himself. Intoxicating joy and self-forgetting, that is what I once thought the world is. Now, it's quite funny because when I was 16, 17, before I read the book, that's exactly how I thought about the world. I was sure that this world is, nothing but suffering, but not in a way of suffering is good like an alpha male, but in a way of like everything that has come to make us stronger and harder and tougher and whatnot, but not like everything is just bad. Kind of like an depressed artist way of looking at things, right? And my way of getting rid of those troubles were not drugs, because I'm never a drug user, neither alcohol, neither nicotine, which are, of course, both are very dangerous drugs, alcohol and nicotine, but that wasn't never my thing. My thing was kind of like dwelling into philosophy books. Dwelling into ideas, dwelling into fantasies, locked in my room, reading books, jerking off, thinking about me living in a commune and talking Africa, whatever, talking only to native people, like getting rid of all of the society that there is. And I think that is why a lot of people nowadays, they think that way, right? And that's why there is a lot of depression, because people do think that this is what it is. Now, Nietzsche just gives it a name. It says, like the God created something out of his own, he will say it later, to get rid of his own shit, and that's why he created the world. Just give it a name, that what we all think. And when he says it's an intoxicating joy for the sufferer to look away from his suffering and to forget himself, that's amazing, because it is an intoxicating joy. Because when the only thing that you're doing is suffering, it's much nicer to get rid of your suffering instead of just keep on suffering, right? And an intoxicating joy. And it's so funny because I remember I had an argument with a good friend of mine, and he asked me, what do you prefer? What do you prefer? To suffer immensely, the greatest suffer you can possibly suffer, and then enjoy the greatest joy that you can possibly enjoy, or keep in the natural state? Now, we might say, of course, suffer and then have fun. And it's no, but no. Because there is nothing worse than suffering. Suffering is a much bigger value of energy than enjoyment. So that's why he's saying it's an intoxicating enjoyment of the sufferer to get rid of his own suffering. The idea where he says, the phantom came to me from my fire and ashes, that is the truth, it did not come from me from the beyond, basically comes to say, you guys, I'm the one who brought the idea that suffering is created. I'm the one who came in and said that suffering is the existence of all. I'm the one who came and said that suffering is the only value that exists in the way that we live. I'm the one who did that. There is nothing that came from the beyond, from the spiritual realm that brings us up. No, I'm the one who did it. I'm the one who created my suffering. And the second where you get the idea and you get the responsibility, I'm the one who's responsible for my own ideas, my own thoughts, my own feelings, my own everything, this is the time where you can actually get rid of it. Because the second you say, this is something that comes outside of me, something of the beyond, you will never be able to get rid of it, right? And he keeps on saying, what happened, my brothers? I, the sufferer, overcame myself. I carried my ashes to the mountains, and I made for myself a brighter flame. And behold, the phantom fled from me. It's only you. It always was you. Because you, everything that you do, whether it's that you talk or you feel or you think, is the reflection of things that are happening to you towards the outside. This is very advanced psychological things, but I think you will understand, because if you watch the video so far, you're probably intelligent enough to enjoy what I'm saying. Everything is you. Everything. If right now you talk to your spouse and you feel hatred towards him, the reason you hate your spouse is because he shows you emotions that you hate about yourself, and is just a mirror to you. Why? Because nothing really exists. Why? Because you're the only one who exists. Why? Because you're the only one who can actually think of the idea of existing. Why? Because you cannot know what happens to other people. Why? Because it's everything your responsibility. That's how it is. Everything that happens, whether it's your parents make you angry, a guy in the street that passes you by while you're driving makes you angry, everything. It's things that you see in yourself, and that's the reason you hate it, and that's also the reason why you love it. Because if you're jealous of someone, or if you love someone, it's because they have emotions that you wish you had inside of you, but you don't have. So you're depending on them to give it to you, because everything is you. The second you're contented and you love everything about yourself, which is completely impossible, but let's say it is, that's the only time, and the only time, where you will feel okay. I do not need another person's appreciation. I do not need another person's company. I do not need this. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Because everybody wants friends, and there's nothing wrong with not liking everything about you. But the second you realize that, all of a sudden it's much simpler to handle it. And I carried my own ashes into the mountain. I overcame myself. I had myself a brighter flame, and then the phantom ran away. Now, the idea of everything is the same reminds me of my favorite artist. It's this guy over here. Unfortunately, we didn't hang the picture yet, but it's an Israeli artist. His name is Meir Ariel, and he wrote a song called According to the Nature Laws. And it's one of my favorite songs of his, and I tried to translate it here into English. Hopefully it works well. It says like this: according to the science of nature, the human is a part of nature. If the human is a part of nature, all of his actions are a part of nature as well. Therefore, according to nature, natural is the human doings. Even the actions of the humans, it is natural to all of its details. The silk of the worm, the cobweb, exactly the same as flowers from plastic, synthetic grass. And it is true. 1 equals 1 equals 1 equals 1. Everything is the same. When everything is the same, you understand that you are the same. When you understand you are the same, there's nothing really you can do about it. It just takes your responsibility and keep going with it. Now, it was suffering and impotence that created all afterworlds, and that brief madness of happiness that only the greatest sufferer experiences. The idea of the afterliving, the spiritual realm, it comes only from one reason. It comes from the suffering and incapability of understanding that the world is not always good, and the world sometimes and usually is bad, and things don't always usually even they go wrong. And when you create this idea of God, this idea of afterworld, this idea of rolling of souls, all of those things, they are an excuse, nothing else but an excuse for us to believe that there is something greater than what is already happening. For us as an excuse to understand, okay, there is something much bigger in the world than that. There has to be, because otherwise why would there be suffering? Why will God create the Holocaust? Why will Genghis Khan kill so many people? Must be something different. There must be a God that is creating all of those things. Something must be better. You cannot grasp suffering. No, this is not true. It is how it is. And it's not wrong. I mean, it's not nice. I wouldn't kill anyone. I don't like the Holocaust. But trying to think that there is an afterworld basically ruins the idea of living. It creates the exact epiphany of looking at the afterworld and looking at the after. No, leave that alone. It's a poor people. It's a slave mortality, right? He's talking about it later. Slave morality. And it keeps on going and says, truly, All beings is hard to demonstrate. It is hard to make it speak. Yet, tell me, brothers, is not the most wonderful of all things most clearly demonstrated? Most beautiful things in life, the most difficult things in life are the same. When something is difficult, something is hard to achieve, that's when it's beautiful. Diamond, gold, love, happiness, family, kids, wife, warm food on the table, good meat, all of those things are hard to get. When they're hard to get, they are better. When they are better, they're hard to get. Of course, sometimes it's easy to get and it's good, like water, sure. But the idea is that usually when things are hard to get, they're better. Sure, grasping the idea that there is suffering in such an immense scale is hard. That's why the easy way out is to think about being a camel, enjoy the good sleep. But this is not the right way. This is not what the Ubermensch way of thinking. Now, we're saying, truly all being is hard to demonstrate, right? It doesn't judge the idea of living that. Quite the contrary, he's actually agreeing with it. It is hard. It is shit. But there's nothing else you can do. Exactly like the other chapter where he says that it is a good sleep, right? It is a good sleep if you don't know anything else. Same with here. And then he keeps on going. They have a raging hate for the enlightened man and for the youngest of virtues, which is called honesty. Now this is for me the greatest quote of this book, because ever since I read this book, I became a very, very honest man. Of course, I was always honest, sometimes brutally honest, but after this book, I became even much more brutally honest. And I believe that there is nothing more important in life than honesty and respect. These are the most important virtues that a person can have. Nothing else is important as honesty. Honesty is key to a well-living life. When you're honest with everything, such as those ideas, and the ideas that there is suffering, and the ideas that this is how it is, and all of the things that we talked about so far, this is when you live life to its fullest, because you cannot lie to yourself. You cannot lie to anything. You cannot think, really, that the synthetic grass is the same as the web of the spider, like we said before in the song of Meir Ariel. And he also keeps on saying, but if you feel a difference between a wanted laugh and a rolling one, God bless, thank you. If you know the difference between a and a rolling laugh, of like, that's when you live life to the fullest. That's life. That's honesty. When you understand that there is a synthetic ideas and there is truth ideas, that's when you live life to the fullest. You cannot fake the real taste of the earth. No God, no thinking, no ideology, no one can change the actual meaning of the earth. For you, the meaning of the earth can be A, the meaning of earth for Nietzsche can be B, but the idea is that the meaning is the same meaning. Of course, it doesn't have to be exactly the same, but the main idea of what is the meaning is the same. And all of those thoughts in spiritual realms, and overthinking, and getting above the idea of suffering and maintenance, and all of those ideas of living the above, and the spirituality, and the bushlacha, and the kumbaya, that's not honesty. And if you look inside, you know it. For Nietzsche, the earth can be Ubermensch. For you, the earth can be simply sitting with your kid watching a movie. Thank you guys for watching.